my secret, just do something that ain't nobody ever done before, but make it sound like something that's always been there forever.
Welcome to a special episode of This Filipino American Life, a podcast that explores the nuanced experiences of Filipinos in the United States at Ivapa. I'm joined by producer Mike, but he's not going to be on the mic, so I'm not going to give you air horns at the moment. But today, I'm joined by my best friend, Ivy Barrera. Say hi, Ivy.
Say hi, Ivy.
And where are we, Ivy?
We are at the Ripped Bodice in Culver City, California.
And the Rip Bodice is what?
A romance bookstore.
You sound like a robot. But yes, it's a romance bookstore. How many times have you been here, Ivy?
About three or four times. I also supported their Kickstarter, so.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know that.
I'm a romance nut.
Nice.
Yes, you are. And the reason
That's your
Ivy
tribe.
is here is because she's the one that got me back into reading romance novels maybe like 10, 15 years ago. And we are here to speak with 4 authors who are actually a part of a panel called Pag-Ibig, celebrating Filipino diaspora and romantic fiction. And why don't we go around the room and you all can introduce yourselves.
Hello, everyone. Mabuhay. This is Tif Marcelo, and I write romance and romantic women's fiction. And I have 4 books out, and my 5th book is coming out in March. But my current and most recent release is The Key to Happily Ever After.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Sarah Smith, and I'm the author of Faker. That's my first book. I write contemporary romance. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mia Hopkins. I'm a contemporary romance author, and my latest series is called Eastside Brewery, and my latest release is called Trashed. I think I have 9 books out now.
Wow.
Ooh. And I'm Maida Malby. I write multicultural romance, contemporary, international, diaspora. My latest book is coming out on Monday, October 21st. It's called Singapore Fling. It's the 3rd book in the series, but it's book 2 actually.
Wait, 3rd book in this series, but book 2?
Yes, because book 1 is, and the 1.5, which is a novella, is about this couple, Kristen Blake. So that's why this is another couple. Maddie
We'll roll
and
with
Aiden.
it. Got it. Well, thank you so much for being here. The origin story for this episode is that I've been a fan of this bookstore since it opened, but I've never been able to make it out here just because life. And then and Ivy had always mentioned it, and then in my email I got like a thing for this panel, and I immediately messaged her like, "Girl, we have to go to this. RSVP now. We're gonna go together." And then Mia actually emailed the TFAL email and was like, "We'd like to invite you." And I'm like, "I'm already coming." Oh my God. Can we talk to you all? And it worked out. And now we are here. And I'm so super excited.
Super exciting.
This is going to be fun. So, we have a list of questions, and I know you all seen them, so I'll just go through them. How did you all get into writing this particular genre? First things first. Anybody, open.
Why me? I've always read romance. I started reading romance at 6. You know those Wakasan comics in the Philippines, because I grew up there. So that's always been my genre of reading. So when I started thinking of writing, that's where I went, because that's the genre I know best, to read and to write. So.
I didn't get into romance until I was about 30, and my husband had gotten me a paperback book from CVS almost as a joke because we're like,
which book was it?
I know, right? It was In Bed with a Highlander by Maya Banks.
Oh, I love that book.
And so, like, we're snotty English majors. Like, we were taught that genre fiction is like below literary fiction, and
Highlander is such an art book.
it is because I read the book in like a day, and then a friend had given me a Kindle. They were pretty new at that time, so I plugged that sucker in, and I think I read maybe 100 that year, maybe more.
Yeah.
Just Scottish Highlander romance, like every single one.
Ivy, this sounds familiar.
I read every kind of contemporary
kind.
and Highlanders, and
I did branch out eventually.
Everything.
And so, like, I had always wanted to write. I had sold some short stories, like literary fiction and actually erotica. And then I had a short story that I wanted to sell, or short story collection that I had wanted to sell. The editor who answered me back said, "These are great, but can you take the first story and expand it?" And that was the first book that I worked on for romance. Yeah, so I'm a latecomer to romance.
I'm a latecomer to romance too. So I actually like to read like Latin American literature and African American lit, and then I stopped reading for a while because 9/11 happened and things like that, and then I had kids, and then actually what brought me back is Twilight, because my little cousin who's 10 years younger than me said. And I was stressed out. I had like 3 kids, and I'm like, I have no time for anything, right? And she brought over the books because they had already, the first 3, right, had been published. And she gave them to me, and I just devoured it. And then I went right into YA lit. Yeah. So I found Jenny Han, I read her, and then I found Sarah Dezen, and I read all of hers. So I think that's where I went. And then I went to Jennifer Armentrout. So I went from YA to new adult, and then to
you like progressed.
Yeah. and so I'm still discovering romance, you know. It's
I can't wait till you get to Cressley Cole and
yeah.
Bella Andre.
So I just got the first book of J.R. Ward's Brotherhood. It's on my kitchen table. So it's kind of such a great like progression. But writing romance, like I always wrote like kissing stories. And then I told my parents I wanted to be a writer, and they were like, no, you will not. You'll make money. And then I became a nurse, right? So that's how I came along.
So I started reading romance when I was a little kid, like I was 8, and my auntie was living with us at the time, and she had like a stash of romance novels in the room that I was sharing with her, and I would go in the closet and read them, and I loved them because they were so like naughty, and I didn't really understand like what was happening, but that's when it started for me. And then I stopped because like that was not a thing that like most parents would want their kids to be reading at that age. So I don't remember what book it was, but it was like a Western, and the woman had like an open dress, and like the guy had his shirt off, you know, like
typical Harlequin.
Yeah. And that's what my auntie really liked reading, and so that's what I liked reading from like 8 to 9 until I got busted. So yeah. And then I started again as an adult when it was okay to do it. Yeah.
We just dived into it, but I realized like, we should give each other everyone's origin story with this genre. I mean, you kind of like tapped into it. Yeah. And Maida, I believe you did as well. And so I know for me, I think I actually like the first book I ever bought from like a Scholastic book fair was called Love Match.
Was it Sweet Dreams?
No, it was I still have it somewhere. The cover is gone, but I like made like a makeshift cover to it. And it was a junior high romance between tennis stars. Somebody who was like a poor, like middle class tennis star. She didn't go to the private school. She went to like a regular public school. But then her parents wanted her to go to this special private school where she met the boy who was the tennis star at the private school. And then it was like they fall in love, and she's like, no, I'm a tomboy. I don't want to wear makeup. And her mom's like, put on a dress. And she's like, no. I read that book so many times the cover fell off. Eventually, they got together, of course. And then they became tennis stars at separate schools. She didn't get to go to the school. And she was like, put her foot down. She's like, I want to be my own person. I was like, I love this. romance. I did not realize that was a romance novel until I was an adult. I was like, I've been reading this genre since I was like 6 years old. And so now I come back and I love, in the advent of like Kindles and reading on your phone, like there was like an embarrassment attachment to like holding a book with like a half naked person on it. And so now I'm like, it's just on my phone. No one knows what I'm reading, so who cares? Yeah. Ivy, what about you?
So I read a lot of books, and I used to read paperback Star Trek books because I'm a nerd and I read too much. And eventually when like Harry Potter blew up, I didn't read the first set. I just watched the movies. And then I'm like, oh, there's a little bit of romance element. How interesting. So then I read the books. And then from reading Harry Potter, it got me back into reading after being in school so long. When you read for pleasure, it's kind of like, oh, it's different. It's reading. Yeah. And then I guess when Twilight blew up, I haven't read Twilight. I'm not going to, sorry if that offends anybody. But Twilight blew up, and then I had some work buddies that were like, oh yes, Twilight everything. And I'm like, really, guys? You're girl. Whatever. And then E.L. James and the 50 Shades came out, and they were like, you have to read it. And I lost so many hours of my life reading it that I got mad, and I'm like, there must be something better out there. And then I found better stuff out there. So many better. And I do a lot of audiobooks because I commute a lot. So audiobooks are my thing, so I can go through like a 300, 400 page book in a day or two.
I love audiobooks. This is Tif. Like it's I have the Libby app for my library, and I have my leftover Audible. I think I have like 2 more, and then I switched over to Libro FM.
Ooh, what is that called?
That is Libro FM. It's Audible, but for that, whatever you pick, and the royalties from that goes to your local bookstore.
Oh, sweet.
So
I'm gonna
I
have to get
switched
that.
over. So I still have leftover Audible, but I switched over to Libro FM. But yeah, I carpool a lot, and that is the only I can get. Louise Bay, have you guys heard of her? She's indie, and she's amazing, and she picks the most perfect narrators, and like. I am in the car, like not wanting to open the door and let my kids in because I'm like, I need to hear this man a little bit more. But yeah, it's so good.
Did we? We kind of talked about that, yeah. So, how do you all incorporate, like, as Filipino American writers? Like, how do you figure out ways to incorporate Filipino American characters into your stories?
Well, my female main characters are always Filipino, whether they're mixed or pure. Like for my first series, which is Carpe Diem Chronicles, I decided, because you know how they say, write what you know? And so that's who I know. I know Filipinos. And that's why I started with Boracay Vows, set in the Philippines. And that is Filipino, set in the Philippines, Filipino characters, except for the American male main character. And incorporating Filipino food, even going to mass and everything. So relationship with the parents, family. So it's all there. It's very Filipino. Even my book set in Singapore still incorporates some Filipino themes there. Like of course family, and again going to church and friendship, and all my books are multilingual, so there's Tagalog in there. And you can't escape, because Filipinos, we don't really call people by their, especially older people, by their first names. So there's always a tita, uncle, auntie, you know how it goes. So it's very interesting at my writing that Filipino-ness is in there.
So I've written 2 Filipina heroines, but I write characters of all backgrounds. And I grew up in a neighborhood where there were no Filipinos, and I'm not terribly close to my family or my extended family. So there's a sense of like just always feeling like an outsider wherever you are. And I think that more than anything, no matter what makes my characters an other, that's how I connect to them the most. Like, I love to write fish out of water stories because I always feel like a fish out of water everywhere. I swim through the air. So I just, it's so dumb. I'm sorry. Sorry. I had a mimosa. Okay, so.
It's my fault.
Yeah, it is totally Maida's fault. But yeah, the idea of being an other in any situation kind of gives me an engine for lots of different scenes. And I think that's where my background reflects in my writing.
I'm pretty similar to Maida's take, like, write what you know. Well, that's what I know is how to be that kind of person. Not necessarily that kind of character, because the characters that I write have like way sexier lives than I do. but like their experiences, like growing up and family stuff, I just take it from my own experience. So it's just easier, I think, for me.
Eat bulaga. There's like mangoes there.
Yeah, there's mangoes everywhere. Because I fantasize about hot guys and mangoes. That's pretty much all I fantasize about. Yeah, that's all.
That works.
Okay. Yeah.
So what's interesting is that when I first started querying books, they were not with Filipino characters. So I queried 2 books that had main characters that were white American. And I wrote it that way, not thinking. This is when I really, writing for me has become almost like a self-exploration in my own identity, because it took another writer, my cousin-in-law, he's black, and he writes science fiction, and he's an indie author. And he took me aside. He's married to my cousin, who's Filipino, like my blood related, and he's like, there are no Filipino characters in your book. He's like, what's up with that? And then I was like, well, I'm just writing to write, right? I'm just writing to write. This is what I like. But I went home and I thought about it for like weeks. And I was like, why is that? Why is that? So the first book that had a Filipino family in there, where I really dug deep, was the book that I got my agent as well as my publisher.
Is it North to You?
It was North to You,
Hey.
and it's about the Filipino food truck and or the Italian food truck with the Filipino restaurant. But it's really interesting. Now, I am intentional because of my own, I guess, realization that I had my own internal things I had to work through. So I was born in the Philippines. I moved here when I was 9, but I was born an American citizen because my grandfather was a citizen. He fought for the war, World War II. He went back to the Philippines and did not return when all those guys came back. So my first language was English. And when we came here, it was a seamless thing because I already knew the language. And I assimilated quotes very well. But it's for me, it's been an interesting journey, because now when I write Filipino American characters, it's truly intentional. And then I also have to question myself, which of this is bias and which is correct. You know, it's been deep. Like, and I write lovely, like in my opinion, I write like light stories and like, romantic. But for me, on the inside, it's been a true, like, deep, meaningful search.
Well, in reading your books, thank you very much, by the way, because we wanted to prepare. Like, I didn't realize how much it would mean to like just see it seamlessly woven into the stories. Like, it's not like I need the book to be a PCN. Like, I don't need that. That's not what I'm there for. Like, it's a romance novel. I want.
Well, it doesn't have to be cultural night. There doesn't have to be tinikling
Yeah.
or Maria Clara dance out of nowhere.
Like, I don't need those things.
Full on, yeah.
But the fact that, like, if it's between sisters, they're calling her ate, like, or they're saying like tita or auntie, like that to me, I'm like, there are little cultural signs that like signify this is Filipino, and that's all I need. It's not like, if it's gonna stop the story, that does like makes no sense. Like, oh, by the way, we're going to have a Maria Clara dance for no reason at this birthday party, I would be like, stop. I don't think this is a good.
No. I mean, yeah. So because I do read a lot of romance of all kinds, the only time, it's like kind of that thing when you're watching like TV and you see a Filipino person and then you're like, yes, I claim them. They're my people. So when you read it in a romance, you're just like, oh, they mentioned something Filipino. Yay. It's not a very big representation for, diversity in romance it's still an issue. Not just for Filipinas, but for
most of the writers are already here. They're right here.
I hope there are more. I don't want this to be most of you.
there are more. We're just slowly discovering them.
Yeah.
As we are trying to build this community, and we're just learning who they are, and we're connecting on social media. They're coming out, and it's like, oh, I didn't know you were Filipino.
Right. I think it's important to say that this is specific to the Filipino American community because the romance genre in the Philippines, like I'm not an expert on it, but it's alive and well. And I've discovered a lot of authors through the romance class community.
Right.
And I mean, their characters are Filipino and the writing is so high level.
Yeah.
And I wish they had more of an audience in the United States for Filipinos who are looking for romance with
Where
Filipino
do you
characters.
find that?
At #RomanceClass.
Yeah.
It's a really great community. You can look for Mina Esquera online. She's kind of a hub for the whole community.
On like Twitter and Instagram?
Yeah, Twitter and
Yeah,
I think maybe bigger on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
But that's a really good place to start. I think that our viewpoint and the things that we're saying about publishing and Filipino Americans in publishing is just that it's specific to Filipino Americans.
And of course, there's Filipino Canadians. So you've got Roselle Lim, and then you've got Jennifer Hillier, who writes Thriller, and then Joanne Ramos came out with The Farm.
I have that in my Libby. I need to finish
so
that.
good.
Okay.
And but it's not romance, but
Yeah.
it's always like when I look out, it's wonderful.
Yeah, like for so long, like the conversations about like what Filipino literature has been like Jessica Hagedorn.
Oh my God.
And then like Ars Amora
Dog
Limart.
Eaters.
And yeah, like those are great books,
Yeah.
right? But like those are heavy books.
Yes.
It's like I read a lot of these things for class, like for Filipino American history class or like lit class, and it's like I want to not read something so heavy all the time. Ivy mentioned like Twilight, and Tif, you mentioned Twilight, and I remember in graduate school, the day I finished my last paper, I still had like maybe 8 weeks left, or 8 days, not 8 weeks. That seems a lot. I went into Twilight and I finished all 4 books or whatever the books were the day I finished grad school. And then from there, I jumped into Charlene Harris because I was like, I'll read the adult version. And then from there, I was like, what am I doing to myself? And then it was like, oh, there's no going back. And like that's kind of like when you want to have something fun. Ivy and I talk about this a lot. Like we talk books all the time. And I'm always like, why am I reading this really sad book?
No, but I mean, you went to grad school for this sad topic. I'm sorry, I'm not that Asian American studies is.
I didn't go to grad school for that.
or education is sad, but
It's not sad, Ivy.
serious. It's serious, and it's kind of a downer because there's a lot of things that need to be better. I mean, I'm just saying, like in education, you kind of like you can't just be like, oh, everything's great. Yeah, education system is wonderful. What kind of you read like stuff where you're trying to get people like culturally woke?
Yes.
So then you read heavy stuff, you're like slavery, reparations, racism.
She's talking about Colson Whitehead.
Yeah.
I totally
And I just read the title and I read the little description on Goodreads and I'm like, ooh.
No.
That's going to give me a lot of feelings, not the happy kinds.
Yeah. No.
It's going to make me disappointed. Like I have a book club that we started like 8 years ago, and all the ladies agree to read the book. So we actually read the book. We do a lot of chica after, before, and during. But everybody has to read the book, and when you go and you don't read the book, you're shamed. But you come back. You come back.
You actually read a book in a book club?
Your book club has to be seriously devoted to reading a book.
I'm a pro reader and book club.
So also the part of the book club where is great because we're a very diverse group, and they make me read stuff what I don't want to read. I'm like, I wouldn't pick that for myself, but it's a book club, and they give, we're opening our ourselves to new experiences and new things. So one of the ladies there, she is an older lady. She's Jewish and white, and she wanted to read The Hate U Give. And I'm like, okay, she's ready. She wants to. And there's one girl in my group that she is African American. She's black, and she doesn't read those type of books because it makes her sad.
Right.
She's like, I know where this is going. I don't want to read it. But she actually wound up, really enjoying it because it's a great book. Obviously, it's a great book, and it uplifts you at the end. But while I was reading it, I'm like, oh, here we go. Here it comes. And everybody's seen the movie, I'm sure, or go watch it if you haven't. But. It's that experience of making yourself read something you wouldn't ordinarily read for yourself, that you're like, oh, well, maybe I do like that. Maybe I can. Maybe not Colson Whitehead. Not
Which is why we read and write romance, because there's that happy ending at the end, or at least happily for now.
Yeah. Do you think most of the books that you write have a happy ending, or
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
like that is the
That's
criteria.
a requirement for romance.
It's a requirement for romance?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So is it a bad romance novel if it doesn't have
It's
a happy
not a romance.
It's not a romance.
Oh.
It might
Yeah.
be romantic fiction, but
Yeah.
it's not a
Okay. So
romance.
I'm
Romance.
getting educated right now.
Yep.
So happy ending. That sounds so dirty, but yes.
Happily ever after. If you don't
Happily
want to say
ever
that.
after.
If you don't want to say that.
Then it's in romance. But if there's like there's this movie that's out right now. It's called Hello, Love, Goodbye. It's like a OFW story, and like they're in Singapore or Hong Kong or wherever it is. It's basically a Knock 2.0, but in like 2019. It doesn't really have a happy ending. Spoiler alert! If you're listening to this and haven't seen that movie, it doesn't really have a happy ending, because like it's set in reality, and the reality is like somebody needs to leave another person to like make money for their family. Blah blah blah. So that then is not a romance.
No.
Yeah.
So you know how there's that movie that's coming out with Daenerys,
Oh yeah, with
Last Christmas.
The Last Christmas.
yeah.
And then we all on Twitter, I don't know who was in this conversation, where we looked at that trailer, and somebody said, well, maybe, what's his name? I forgot his name.
Henry Golding.
Henry Golding.
Yeah, he's beautiful. That's why they don't.
That he's really a ghost, or one of them is a ghost.
I think it's a ghost.
Right? The thing
He's
is,
always wearing the same coat.
it was a big conversation on romance Twitter, because none of us are going to watch it, because if it's a ghost, that means that they can't be together. So why would I subject myself to like invest my life?
No, because it's an adaptation of the song. Last Christmas I gave you my heart, and she has a heart problem. Hello.
I thought she was gonna die or something.
Well, any death equals not a happily ever after.
Oh my gosh.
It just broke my heart. My heart.
Yeah. So in the romance, everyone else can die, but not the main couple.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
The main couple has to
Yeah.
live.
So even if they're in heaven together,
No, they can't die at all.
No, they can't.
There's no death in romance.
Dog can die.
no, pets cannot die. I just have to tell you, pets cannot die.
That's
either.
true.
Oh my gosh, guys. I'm going to watch Last Christmas, and then I'm going to be like so sad. Mike, we're going to watch Last Christmas. I'm just letting you know, because Henry Golding's in it. And I'm so sad. Okay.
We don't know.
We don't
really
know,
know.
though.
I don't know who's heard the who's.
It was like a
watched the
3-day
movie.
conversation on
Not
Twitter.
out yet.
Well, we should all watch the movie, and then we'll check in with each other when it comes out, and then be like, we were right or we were wrong. But either way, we got to see Henry Golding on screen, and that's a win for all of us.
Oh yeah,
That is so true.
For the culture.
Yeah. So that
It's educational.
The Asian culture.
I get it. Well, this conversation actually answers one of Joe's questions, because one of Joe's questions was, does romance have to have a happily after? And I'm like, oh yeah, it does. That's fascinating to me.
That's for romance in books, because the films define romance different way. Yeah. So if it's central, if the love story is central to the movie, to the film, it's considered a romance already, even if it ends like all those Nicholas Sparks, but he's not considered romance in books.
Yeah, because someone always dies.
Yes, exactly.
Also, he's a terrible person. I
And he
just want
doesn't
to put that out there.
Yeah. And he disavows romance, that he doesn't write romance. Okay, so
That's ridiculous.
no.
He just doesn't know how to write a happy ending.
No.
Yeah, because everybody has to die.
Yeah. For the sake of, I last book I read that had like death, and I didn't expect was what was that? Now I've forgotten. Now it's gone out of my head. Shoot. Let me check my good.
Okay, Ivy's gonna check.
Two words first.
Ivy will check.
Sounds like.
Sounds like.
Check your Goodreads, girl. It's probably in there.
Is it a romance?
It is a romance.
Who's the author?
Ivy reads like 3 books a week, so
The
that.
Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez.
Yeah.
So
That
the
was,
side
yeah.
her best friend was about to get married.
Yes.
And the fiance died like 8 days before the wedding.
Yeah,
and
it was
I was
awful.
thinking he's gonna come through. He got run over by a car, but he gonna come through. And then he died. And I was like,
Spoiler alert.
Did that upset you? Because that really upset me.
it really was
Okay.
upsetting because I was like, this guy's so cool. And then her best friend's, well, whatever, the guy died. And I was like, how is she gonna rescue this into a happily ever after? This is a pastel colored romance book. You know what I mean? Like pastel covered romance books
Yes,
are,
yes.
are really the vogue right now.
Yeah.
And usually
by Pink.
Betrayed by Pink. Oh my God.
because like when you see a pastel, cartoony romance cover, you're like, oh, it's gonna be light and sweet. Maybe it'll be sexy. Maybe it won't. But to have her kill somebody in the story, I was like, I had so many
Yeah.
feelings and emotions about it.
I'm not gonna read that.
Read it, so good.
Oh. You just told me to read. You told me someone died.
But no, but she rescued it.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. You'll send it to me. We'll figure it out. Yeah. Something that I've noticed in, at least in romance, like for the longest time, a lot of the writers I would read were like all white ladies, just because that was what was there. And but lately, there's been like a real good like cohort or class of like writers of color. Like I was telling Ivy, Jasmine Guillory. I will read anything she puts out right now. And Helen Huang.
Oh yeah.
Like
love her.
That it's like great. And then
For the
Kissing Quotient.
Kiss Quotient, yeah, it's optioned for a
Yep.
movie, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, who's going to be? What's his name?
Michael.
Mike.
Um,
Can we let's like fantasize who it'll be?
Kiss Quotient. I'm sorry. It's,
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you're right. Kiss Quotient is option. Yeah,
There's
and
another one.
The Bride
The
Test.
Hating Game.
the
No, the Hating Game.
yeah, that one.
has
Yeah,
a big-
the
that one
cheating
already
right
has a
now,
cast. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was Sally Thorne.
Oh.
It's definitely not just this year's cohort or even last 5 years cohort, because there are so many writers of color that have been writing for decades.
Is it that they're
Yes.
getting their shine recently?
And
or
I just think that the internet is able to like put a shine in general.
Yeah.
And once you find them, it's really plentiful. So you've got Beverly Jenkins,
Oh yeah. Miss Bev.
Miss
This
Bev,
layer of
and then you've
words.
got Brenda Jackson, and they have led, and even years before then. Can you guys remember?
I like Brenda Jackson. She always she writes the cowboy ones, right? She would write that genre. It was like
She does.
black cowboys, and I was like, ooh, I like this.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if you ladies go to the conventions. I've been to a couple. Just as a reader, I'm not at all interested in writing. That's a lot of work. And,
Yeah.
I'm lazy at heart.
Yeah.
So
Writing is hard.
They the one I went to was in New Orleans, the
Book Lovers Convention.
yeah, the last Book Lovers Convention in New Orleans. And they had the panel about diversity, and they had Zenaida Cordoba and Jose something older, yeah. And they had like some really good talk and conversations about like how, their cultural backgrounds like really inform what they write and what they put out there. So it's good to see that you know.
And we just have to remember that what fuels the show of what's out there is kind of out of our control, even as writers, because you have publicity teams and within publishing and that are the forefront of who
drive it.
That drive that I guess that publicity.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we as readers and as book lovers, we just have to be aware that it's always been here. It's just now I don't want to say even now, but because 5 years ago, Alyssa Cole has been like, and you've got Alicia Rye, all of these folks that have just been pounding the pavement, like bringing us like fantastic books, and you've got Mia, who's a mid-list.
What?
Who's a mid-list author? Do you know what I mean? So I consider you a mid-list author.
What does that mean? Mid-list?
Yeah, what does it mean?
I believe mid-list for me, mid-list means you've got 10 books out. You know what I mean? You've got I mean, like you've been there. It's not a debut. It's not even a one series.
Got it.
It is the keep coming back after it's not perfect, right? Well, publishing isn't always perfect. So
I mean, I'm a hybrid author, so I'm indie and traditionally published. And I think when you're talking about traditional publishing, it feels like there's a lot more diverse authors who are in the spotlight because traditional publishing is now feeling the pressure of putting them in the spotlight. It's not that there weren't authors of color who weren't furiously writing books and trying to find the audiences.
It's that traditional publishing houses weren't pushing them.
Corporate
backing.
Money.
I do have to say, as a YA book lover, that as authors, in general, just across the board, we have a responsibility to provide books for children like mine who are now 18, 14, 17, and 9, that have been reading such fantastic books by YA authors who have expanded, like exploded. And forefront folks are like Jenny Han and Melissa De La Cruz, right? And Jason Reynolds. They've and much more.
Yeah, like
and I feel like my daughter who's 14, who is now ready for romance, I feel great at saying, let me show you my shelf, and then you can read that.
This generation of kids, like
we have a responsibility for them to give them the books that they need.
For me, like the only person I had was like Claudia Kishi, and so like that was like the one person from Babysitters Club that was like, I don't care that you're Japanese. You are my idol because you're the one Asian person in this group of white kids.
You're so lucky. My first Filipino, I was 13. I read Dog Eaters. No.
Oh, see, that is heavy.
I was like, this is who I am.
I was
I mean, it is, but yeah. No.
I mean, who I reached out to, like I hung on to the Joy Luck Club because, in my opinion, that was the only thing at the time that I could say that is close enough.
Right. To your family.
Close enough to my family, where all those women got together, and I used to call my aunties and my mom the Joy Luck Club.
That's so funny because we have a running joke with our best friend because we said that she was basically Ming-Na, and we when she did PCN, we held up a sign that said worst quality crab, best quality heart. Because
she's very self-sacrificing, so that there was that scene where
well, and also
and Elaine is Waverly, by the way.
So I'm a brat. Well, that was the thing. Like, even with the movies, like we didn't have anything, and so like in the 90s, like we all glommed onto that movie, and then we were like, well, which one are we? And then like, Ivy, who are you? You were like Rosa. You were Rosalind Chen's character because
making that peanut butter pie and being like, being really sad.
Well, I said that was you because
she can cook.
Well, because you could cook. And also because she was later in Deep Space Nine. So, like, that is why that was you, because she had the Star Trek connection. Yes. And then I was Waverly because when Waverly was a child and she was playing chess, like, I look exactly like that child. Like, there is a picture of me in pigtails where I look exactly like that kid. And
I could totally see you being like a little brat. Yes. Playing chess and be like, no.
That's exactly what I would have done. Thank you, Ivy. But, but that's the thing, like, the new generation has so much more. Like they have all those books, like you were saying, and then like now we can show them, and now traditional publishing is finally like getting there to like show everything. But like speaking of which, like with the art for that, who does the art? I like that some of your art features more brown people because usually it's white people. Do you control the art?
Well, I do because I'm indie.
Mm-hmm.
So I contracted a designer, and I give her all the stuff I want in the cover. So of course they're all location based.
Mm-hmm.
So like Boracay has to have that icon of the
Palm tree, beach, all the thing.
No, it's the grotto.
Oh, the
Yeah, the Mary's grotto, and then Singapore, of course, has to have the merlion in there, and then the woman, I can't have a person facing because I don't want to have a face in my covers, so it's always the woman's back, and yeah, they're bigger than the models that they find on the. You know how we have to buy those photos, stock photos,
Mm-hmm.
and I have her edit those photos to make them a little bit
curvier.
Yes, because my people are real. You know, they have meat in their bones and they're padangkadangs, so they just gotta have a bottom, because that's my thing. Anyway, so yeah, and they gotta be darker. Like the Singapore fling, she's brown, because she is Filipina and she's earth toned skin. So yeah, I controlled that as an indie, and we were talking about that with Tiffany.
So in traditional publishing, it's a little different.
Yeah.
So they come up with the concept. There's a team that reads my blurb, that comes up with the concept, but then they send it over to me to get my approval or suggestions. And you know, there's always suggestions on my end, and I have an editor that is amazing. And I think that as we continue to work together, and it just gets better and better. So I'm really pleased about that.
Yeah, I don't have any control over covers either, but I'm lucky in that I've only had one cover so far because it's my debut book. But I liked what they came up with. I know that the artist, her name is Vicky Chu, and she also does Jasmine Gilroy's book covers, and I love her. She's really good.
Yeah.
For my indie covers, like finding stock photos of people of color, like, woo, that's an adventure. Yeah, so you have to really like work your search terms and like be real creative with like searching for the right people.
So what you're saying is brown people take stock photos and sell them.
Yes. I mean there are a lot. There are some photographers who specialize in that, and then there are photographers who make sure that they have diverse models working for them and they have like a big
That would be awesome.
portfolio of it. But when you mix it up the way some of us do, like, I'm like, well, she's like, I send the email. She's like, okay, what are you going to make me do now? Like, what kind of Photoshop wizardry are you going to make me do?
Like, if we were to put a call out to like the audience, like, hey, if you want to be a stock model, like, what do they need to do?
I don't know.
Or like, what would you ideally be looking for? Like, if it's a guy, do they need to like have their shirt off?
I mean, it helps. I would like them to please not. Ooh, yeah. That is a specific special order from Sarah.
So, hey guys out
more
there,
mangoes.
Take your shirt off, take a picture, hold a mango.
Yeah, juicy mangoes.
Sarah and Ivy agree.
Usually the guy in the photos, profiles are always good. I've seen a lot of covers like that. Don't look at the camera. Don't look at the camera. I like eye contact. I like when the girl looks at the guy instead of them going like you know, looking in the distance. I'm like, what happened? Did someone fart? Why are you looking up? Like, you know what I mean? Like that. Those are the But for contemporary romances, I mean, a lot of times there isn't a swoony type cover on it.
Because like everybody, like, well, not everybody, that's like people just think Fabio, right? Because he was like the Harley Quinn cover for so long, so they think like big giant hair, big ass pecs, and it's like, oh, but like you want that, but in a brown body, in like a mango grove. or with mangoes. I don't know. I'm trying to keep
starting to see more trends of different types of bodies on men and women, which is really, really, really a great thing to see, because all of my covers are like man chest covers, which I enjoy, but I enjoy all kinds of people. Yes. So it would be nice to see more variety.
Like in the sports fictions I read. I mean, sports romance. It's just like a man chest and he's carrying a football. Why is he not wearing his pads? I don't know. He's got abs. Abs covers.
Or the fireman one where they're like just like they have no shirt on but they have the pants.
They just have the suspenders on and there's no
and you're like, why? Okay.
Well, why?
Yes, those are, I like that at this point the podcast is derived of us imagining half naked people. Because that's what romance is.
It is, though. It is.
It is. That's why Kindles are great, so people don't have to have a little bit of embarrassment when they read.
I say read it in public.
That's
just
what I say. Hold it
up, like get on a train and be like, listen, this is an oily man chest. You're just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. Mike, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take all of these books and you have to take pictures of me holding them in public as we eat.
There's a bookshelf downstairs for the most like egregiously sexy covers, and just like hold it and read.
We should make Mike hold
They have
it.
that
Have Mike read
men
it.
who forgot their shirts.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like a whole bookshelf.
I mean, a lot of the genre is very like heteronormative though, but like, is there a push for like queer stories in this genre? I mean, I don't know if I've actually read anything of late that.
Red, white,
Oh, Red, White, Royal
Yeah, I was just
Blue.
gonna
Yeah,
say
I
Red,
did
White,
read that.
Royal
Oh, yeah.
Blue.
Yeah. Do you know of any Filipino American authors that are writing towards that?
my-
genre?
Romance class has them, I believe.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I'm sure. But my friend R.L. Merrill, she wrote. Oh my God, I'm going to mangle this. The Hurricane Reese. What do you call this? Anyway, one of the main characters is Filipino. He's a caregiver. So Reese is a Broadway musical I forgot. Something. Anyway, he composer. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, and his grandfather was needed caregiver. Yeah.
Okay.
So and the caregiver was Jude, and he's Filipino, and she incorporates the Filipino families. The issues with homosexuality, LGBT issues, and so it's incorporated there in the book. So I
that
love
would be
book.
kind of nice
Yeah.
too. I'm gonna look at that one.
Hurricane Reese by
Hurricane Reese.
R.L. Merrill.
R.L. Merrill. Oh, okay, great. Is there, for folks who are new to this genre, what would be like your recommendation for like a baby steps book into reading? Like, for someone listening who has never read a romance novel or is pretending that they've never read one, what would you recommend as like a good first book?
I would say
Besides your own, by the way. Everybody
Beside
buy
our
these books though.
Everybody. I'll say Bet Me by Jennifer Cruzy. That book has everything. The heroine is she has weight struggles, but she owns it, and she doesn't give in to the pressures. And then the hero is also he has dyslexia, and he has everything. He has chicken marsala, has shoes, has a weird cat in there. So it's
I love that everything includes chicken marsala. I'm gonna make that a part of my everything.
Yeah.
Mia, Sarah, Tif.
I think if you're reticent about reading romance, maybe historical might be a nice transition. One of my favorite authors is Sherry Thomas, who learned English by reading romance novels. She's got a Chinese background. And she has, I guess, the first books I read of hers were the London series. I think they're Victorian romances.
About the ton and then little stuff.
Oh my God!
I actually just finished Sherry Thomas's.
Which one?
The one with the with Gigi and Camden.
Oh my gosh! It's been
all
so
of those
long.
sound like appropriate names for a London.
Which one is
Gigi,
it?
Camden. I'm sure someone's name is Victor and someone is a
private
Viscount.
arrangements?
Is it?
Private arrangements?
Yeah.
Private arrangement.
His at Night was my favorite, I think. Like,
I love
it's
Delicious.
So good. Oh,
Of course,
because that's a
you
food
know.
one. That's a food one.
Oh.
Yeah,
Makes you so
Delicious.
hungry.
Yes.
Sherry
yes.
Thomas, food, historical. It's Victorian dresses. That's the one.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my gateway drug for you guys.
They probably have these books here. We should go look
Yes,
them. Yeah, I'll
yes.
take pictures of them.
I'm gonna pick a really obvious one, The Hating Game. I feel like everyone who I have like that's a pretty universal, but it's
Right.
super popular. Everybody has heard of it, but that's very like it kind of catches you off guard.
Yeah, when I started reading your book, I thought The Hating Game.
Did you?
was
Oh my
vibes.
gosh!
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
That sounds like a good like quote to put like on the cover. Like on the book jacket.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Olivia Dade's Teach Me. I recently read that, and I read it in like 24 hours. It's about two teachers, and it's just like the title. It's she kind of indoctrinates him into this new school, but it's so thoughtfully written. There's so much there about consent. There's so much there about just the love for a person that I think for anybody that, especially for anybody that maybe has misconceptions about what a romance looks like, they might think body strippers, but if they read this book, they'll see how romance writers are really thoughtful, I think, in trying to set the stage for, especially, these days when we're really concerned about what love should look like.
Yeah.
I think that's a great book to start with.
Ivy, do you have one?
I think a historical is a good place to start, and since Netflix has optioned Julia Quinn and Shonda Land is doing it, I'd say get into the Bridgerton series. Yeah. I mean, she's super easy to read. It's historical, but it's not so historical that you're like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Although the Duke and I is
The Duke and I,
probably
the first
not
one,
the best.
No, it isn't. But for most like long series format of romance, I would say if anybody was gonna get into it, definitely read the first book, but don't judge the series by the first book.
Yeah,
Since there's a lot of ground they usually have to lay out for you.
Right.
Like even in non-romance books, like if it's any kind of fiction where they're gonna drag you out for 13 plus books and then they have to like bleh, info dump bleh.
Yeah.
I would say the Fool's Gold series by Susan Mallory, because it's contemporary. And I think that was the first one that I read where I was like, it wasn't a bodice ripper, like there's not a lot of sex in it, and then it was really just about this town and you're figuring it out, and I want to go to this imaginary town called Fool's Gold that has a festival every weekend, which I did not understand, but like, okay. But I loved everything about this town. And so just the fact, like, the characters are so sweet. That's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people think romance is just going to be a bodice ripper, but it's really like character development. And I think that if you're a fan of writing and a fan of reading, romance provides that in such a way where I'm always like, these authors like you all are like super prolific, because I don't know how Susan Mallory does it, but I think that woman puts out a book a week and I have no idea. They're different series and they're still putting out books, and I'm like, I will buy all of them. Sure. Or, support my local library, because that's what I like to do as well. You have any other final questions, Ivy? Do you know? I mean, we didn't really, but it's just fine. Let's do something fun like workshop a book together. Just, you can't do games? Oh no. Okay, let's just pretend. she's getting heated. Okay, let's do something evil. Let's not evil, easy. Let's workshop. I know. Let's workshop just a romantic lead. So, what would your ideal romantic lead be for your next book, or not even your next book, just an ideal romantic lead?
Are we doing contemporary or historical? Contemporary.
Contemporary?
I think all of us are contemporary.
Yeah.
Remember we said tall is a woman's version of blonde.
That's so true, though. Yeah.
When you say somebody's tall, you're like, oh, good looking, even though maybe. Yeah. But when a girl's blonde, you're like, ooh, she's blonde. And you're like, the face is not big.
Okay, so tall. Ivy says tall.
He's tall.
And then I personally prefer them to have a very nice body.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's not super realistic or maybe even that progressive.
But it's a book.
It's a book. It's a fantasy. I feel like women get a lot of pressure on how we're supposed to look.
Yeah.
And so my fantasy guy can have
the pressure.
Yeah, the pressure to have a nice body. Yeah.
No, but actually, a lot of the discussions are looking for husky.
Yeah,
man.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's true. But there's different kinds of nice body. You don't have to always have an 8-pack.
Yeah.
You can be muscular but have some heft.
Dad
to you.
bod.
Yeah,
Dad bod. Yes.
Which dads?
I like a rugby body. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
That's a
He can play
great.
rugby on the weekends. Keep up that rugby body, so he can eat. So
Right.
he has some meat on his bones, but he plays rugby, so he's fit.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rugby dad.
And he can cook.
Yes.
I'm imagining this cover now, and it's half naked, but with a rugby ball, and then on an island, a cooking island, and there's a pot and a pan.
Is there a beard? How are we on beards?
I'm okay with beard. I'm okay with the beard. Sure. No, Mike's here. He has a beard. but
Oh,
yeah.
there you go. Yes. We're going the beard.
As long as it's clean, I'm good with the beard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's trimmed and yeah.
It's not not like a lumberjack.
No,
super
or
long.
Or a food catcher.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so gross. Ew.
Like Mike's
I'd go for
beard.
a food catcher.
We need to post
You've
a
read my
photo
books.
of
You know
Mike.
I would.
Penny Reed, the beard series.
Oh yeah, that's a great.
Love her. Books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, really. All the covers are knit. No. Cross stitch beard-ish looking. Oh no, it's good. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, one of them looks like actually Mike's face. The first
We have to post a picture of Mike and the podcast.
the book is probably here. We'll just have Mike hold it next
Right,
and then we'll just
yeah.
do that. We'll take that picture. Thank you so much. We could be talking forever, but then you all have to talk later for this panel. So, thank you so much. Thank you to the Rip Bodice. Thank you to Ivy for being here and being my co-host on this journey and dropping knowledge on things. Thank you to Mike for doing this. Oh, do any of you have any plugs? Oh yes, please plug your book. Tell everybody to buy what your books are and all these good things.
The Key to Happily Ever After.
Bye.
Tif Marcelo.
Faker by Sarah Smith.
Trashed by Mia Hopkins.
Singapore Fling, Maida Malby.
And this Filipino American Life is a podcast that you're listening to right now. So you don't have to buy it, but keep listening. Ivy, do you have anything to plug?
No. I don't sell anything. Sorry. Read more. Everybody read more. Helps you prevent Alzheimer's. Thank you.
Yeah, see, that's a good way to end it. Thank you very much. Thank you to Mike. Mike, do you have anything to plug? No. All right. This Filipino American Life is produced by Michael Nailat. Our intro and outro music is by Roger Habon, aka 10.4 Raj. Resident reality checker Girly Colado. Legal advisor Rianne Fajardo. And graphic design by Vincent Collyer.